What did your parents say that you'll never be able to unhear? He waited until I was alone. No noise, no distractions, just me and him, and the look in his eyes I'd never seen before. Then he said one sentence, calm, like it was nothing, but it shattered every memory I had of our family. I still hear it when I try to fall asleep, and I wish I'd never asked what really happened that night. I used to think my family was boring, quiet. A little cold maybe, but nothing unusual. We weren't the type to have big fights or dramatic scenes. We were more muted, like everyone was playing a part they didn't remember auditioning for. Holidays were stiff, dinners were quiet, and every room had that strange tension you don't notice until you step into someone else's house and realize, oh, this isn't normal. But I never questioned it, not really. Not until I turned 27, moved back in for a few months after a bad breakup, and started noticing the silences weren't just uncomfortable, they were strategic. My dad would pause when I walked in. My mom would switch off the TV like it had betrayed her. And my brother, the golden child, he'd look at me like I was the one interrupting something sacred. I thought maybe I was just sensitive. Maybe heartbreak had made me paranoid. Until the night I found the photo. It was buried behind old tax records in the basement file cabinet. One of those oversized family portraits from the 90s, the kind with terrible lighting and awkward matching sweaters. Only in this one, there was a girl I didn't recognize, standing between my parents, arms crossed tight like she didn't want to be there. My brother was in the corner, maybe 12 years old, with the same smug smile he still wore like armor. But who was the girl? She looked about my age. Same dark hair, same jawline, almost like me, but not me. I brought it upstairs, held it out to my dad without a word. He looked at it, then at me, took a deep breath. Put that away, he said. It's not yours to worry about. That was all. No shock, no confusion, no lies. Just dismissal. I pressed him. Who is she? Why was she in our family photo? Why have I never seen this picture? He said nothing. That night I couldn't sleep. I Googled missing persons cases, checked local archives, even tried searching reverse image tools. Nothing. The photo looked real, aged naturally, no signs of editing. But the girl didn't exist, not online, not in family albums, not in memory. I asked my mom the next morning. She said it was probably a cousin from another state. Your father had a big family, she said, sipping her coffee, not meeting my eyes. Lots of distant relatives, but that didn't track. My dad had exactly one sister who lived in Maine and hated cameras. The rest of his family was dead or estranged. I knew this because I'd asked when I was 13, trying to do a genealogy project for school. My dad had gone quiet, told me we didn't need to dig up ghosts, and now here I was digging. A week passed. I kept the photo hidden in my room, beneath the drawer liner in my nightstand. I watched my parents more closely, the way they avoided certain rooms, how they tensed when the landline rang, even though no one called it anymore. I started to feel like an intruder in my own childhood home, like I'd come back to something that was never truly mine. Then one night I came home late from a friend's place. Everyone was asleep, or so I thought. I passed the study and heard my dad talking, not loudly but firm. I paused, listening. He said, I told you it would stay buried. She doesn't need to know. We did what we had to. My chest tightened. I leaned closer, but he stopped talking. I crept upstairs, heart pounding, and locked my bedroom door for the first time in years. That was the night I knew I wasn't crazy. Something happened, something big, and I was going to find out. The next morning my dad acted normal, too normal. He asked if I wanted pancakes, said he might take the boat out this weekend, see if the engine still worked. I nodded, played along. But I watched him, every movement, every glance. He was hiding something. The question was, what? I went to the attic that afternoon. The one place no one ever went. It still smelled like mothballs and wet cardboard. I dug through boxes labeled Christmas and Tax Docs 2001 until I found one marked with nothing at all. Inside were old VHS tapes, home videos. I didn't even know we had a camcorder back then. I took them to the garage, dusted off an old player, and started watching. Birthday parties, backyard barbecues, my brother playing soccer, me blowing out candles. But in one video, dated July 1998, she was there, the girl, standing behind my mom, watching, not smiling, not speaking, just watching, like she didn't belong. Like she knew she wasn't supposed to be on camera. My mom notices the cameras on her and quickly steps in front of the girl. The footage shakes, cuts off. I rewound it 10 times. There was no mistaking it. She was there, in our yard, at my party. I confronted my mom, showed her the tape. Her hands trembled. She turned off the TV without a word, walked to her room and locked the door. I waited for my dad to come home. He was late, later than usual. When he finally arrived, I didn't let him take off his coat. I said, "Who is she?" He looked at me for a long time, then said he needed a minute. He poured himself a drink, sat at the kitchen table, then waited until I was alone. No noise, no distractions, just me and him, and the look in his eyes I'd never seen before. Then he said, "She wasn't supposed to survive." I didn't understand. I asked what he meant. He didn't answer, just stood up and walked out the front door like he hadn't just dropped a bomb on our entire family history. I never forgot that sentence. I still don't know if he meant it as a confession, a threat, or a regret. and I still don't know who she was, or what happened to her, but I know this. Every smile, every laugh, every story they ever told me growing up was a lie. I just wish I knew how deep it went. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. His words played on a loop in my head over and over. She wasn't supposed to survive. What does that even mean? Was it a metaphor? Was he drunk? Was it a joke in some twisted, unfunny way? But the way he said it, calm, resigned, with that hollow look behind his eyes, that wasn't a joke. That was the kind of sentence you bury for decades and hope no one ever digs up. And somehow I had. The next morning he was gone. Not in a dramatic way, no note, no packed bags. His car was in the driveway, wallet on the kitchen counter. Just gone. My mom didn't say a word about it. She made coffee like nothing was wrong, stood at the sink washing dishes that weren't dirty. When I asked her if she knew where he went, she said he just needed air. I asked her what he meant by what he said last night. She blinked twice, then said, "It's better you don't know, sweetheart." That was the moment I realized I was never going to get answers from them, not directly. So I started digging in other places. I called my aunt in Maine. We'd never been close, but I remembered her as the only person in the family who ever said what she meant. She picked up after 4 rings. I said I needed to ask her something personal, something about my parents. There was a long pause. Then she said, "Is this about the girl?" My heart dropped. "So you know." Another pause. Then, softly, "I was hoping they'd tell you when you were old enough." Old enough for what? To understand what they did. She wouldn't say more on the phone, invited me to come visit, said it was time someone told me the truth, or at least her version of it. I drove up the next morning, 6 hours through rain and fog that felt too symbolic. The whole drive I kept picturing that girl's face, not scared, not angry, just quiet, watching, like she knew all along that one day I'd start asking questions. My aunt lived in a modest cabin on a hill near the coast. She opened the door before I even knocked. Her eyes were sunken, like she hadn't slept well in years. She hugged me, then led me into the kitchen where a pot of soup was already simmering. We didn't talk for a while, just sat there, the clock ticking louder than it should have. Then she said, "Your parents used to be different, before the incident." I asked what incident. She closed her eyes like she was sorting through years of dust and damage. "There was another child, before you." My stomach flipped. "I know, I saw her in a photo. In a video. Who was she?" "Her name was Elise," she said. "She wasn't adopted. She wasn't a cousin. She was theirs, born before your brother, before they were married even. Your mother was still a teenager." I stared at her. Why didn't anyone ever tell me? Because Elise was trouble. Not in the way people say about rebellious kids. I mean, things happened around her. Accidents, fires, animals going missing, teachers calling home in tears. Your mom was scared of her, but she was a child. "That's the thing," my aunt said, eyes narrowing. She didn't act like one. I tried to brush it off, to keep things grounded in reality. Maybe Elise had behavioral issues. Maybe she was sick. Maybe my parents were just young and overwhelmed. But then my aunt said something I still don't know what to do with. One day, Elise disappeared. Your parents told everyone she ran away. But I never believed that, because the night before she vanished, your dad called me, crying. Said he couldn't do it anymore. Said he was afraid of what she might become. I gripped the table. "Are you saying they did something to her?" She didn't answer, just looked out the window. All I know is, after that night, no one ever saw her again, not even a trace. And they started over, moved, had your brother, got married, bought a house in a new town, reinvented themselves. But they never talked about Elise, never said her name again. I felt like I couldn't breathe, but I saw her, in the tape, at my birthday party. My aunt turned sharply. "What?" She was there in the background, watching. Her face went pale. "That's not possible." "Why? Because your birthday is in 1999. Elise disappeared in 1993. The room went silent. My hands were cold. I opened my phone, pulled up the paused screenshot I'd taken from the VHS and slid it across the table. My aunt stared at it for a long time. "That's her," she whispered. "But it can't be." I asked her if she was sure about the year Elise vanished. She said she was. She remembered because it was the same week her dog went missing, and she'd found the leash hanging from a tree branch. Something about that detail chilled me. I left the next morning, drove home in silence. When I arrived, my dad was back, sitting on the porch like he never left. He looked tired. Like the kind of tired that no sleep can fix. I asked him, "Is her name Elise?" He didn't even blink. "So your aunt told you." I nodded. "Was she dangerous?" "She was unpredictable," he said. "That's not the same thing." "What happened to her?" He took a long breath. "We tried everything, therapy, medication, moving, praying. But nothing helped. She said things she couldn't have known. About people, about deaths before they happened. I didn't believe it at first, thought it was coincidence, but then she said something about your mother's father, about what he did to her, things your mom never told anyone, not even me. "So you were scared of her?" He looked away. "We didn't know what else to do." "So what did you do?" He didn't answer, just stood up and walked inside, locked the door. That night I watched every tape again. Frame by frame, Elise appeared 3 times, always in the background, always watching, never smiling. Once she was standing behind a tree in our front yard. Another time behind the glass door at Christmas, partially obscured by a wreath. No one ever acknowledged her. Like they couldn't see her, or chose not to, but I could. And I still do. Every time I close my eyes, I see her, watching, waiting. And I still don't know what my parents did to her, or if she's really gone. I couldn't stop thinking about that line. We didn't know what else to do. It looped in my head the way guilt does, the way unsaid things claw at your ribs in the middle of the night. It didn't explain anything, not really. It was the kind of thing people say when they've done something they can't defend and hope you'll just nod and let it slide. But I couldn't. Not anymore. I started paying attention to the spaces in between. The family photos with gaps. The birthdays where Elise should have been. The conversations my parents shut down the moment they got close to memory. One night, I dug through the attic again, this time pulling out boxes of old paperwork, school files, report cards, insurance forms. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Maybe just a piece of paper with her name on it, something that proved she was real and not just some collective erasure. And then I found it. A medical bill, not addressed to my parents, addressed to someone named Elise R. The last name was different, not ours. It was stapled to a pediatrician summary from 1991, same address, same handwriting in the Guardian section. But the last name, it was wrong, or maybe it wasn't. I took it downstairs and laid it beside the family photo. Her features were the same. But now I noticed something else. My mother's hand wasn't resting on Elise's shoulder the way it was on mine and my brother's. It hovered just behind, almost like she didn't want to touch her. I stared at it for a long time. Then I called the hospital listed on the form, pretended I was a relative trying to track down old family records. The woman on the phone was polite but firm. Said those records were sealed, that even with a name and date of birth, I wouldn't get anywhere without legal clearance. But then she asked, "Are you sure about the last name? I don't see anything under that one for that date. Try under our family name." I said. She paused. "Oh, that does bring something up. But this file was marked inactive due to patient death." I froze. "Death, yes. Declared in 1993. Do you need a copy of the certificate?" I said yes, gave her my email, but the document never came. 2 days later I received a letter instead, no return address. Inside was a single line typed in bold sans serif font, "Some things are better left buried." That was it. No signature, no explanation. I showed it to my parents. My dad looked like someone had punched him in the throat. My mom sat down slowly and asked, "Did you call anyone?" I wanted answers. "Well, now you have more questions," she said flatly. "Is that what you wanted?" I asked them again, this time louder, harder. "What happened to her?" My mom stood up, walked to the sink and turned on the faucet. Not to wash anything, just to make noise, a wall between us. My dad finally said, "We signed the paperwork. We did what the doctors recommended." "What doctors?" "Elise was placed in a facility," he said. "It wasn't a prison, but it wasn't a school either. It was supposed to be temporary. But she couldn't adjust. She stopped talking, refused to eat. She broke things, hurt people. They said she was a threat to herself and others, so you left her there." He looked down. "We visited for a while. Then she started saying things again, things about your mother, about your brother, about you, and we didn't know what to believe anymore, so you let them declare her dead." Silence. I think that was the answer. Inaction dressed as helplessness. They didn't kill her, but they didn't save her either, and in the end someone else made the decision for them. Or they let them. I started digging into records, legal databases, obituaries, public archives. I even paid for one of those background check services. Nothing matched. There was no Elise R. listed as dead in our state in 1993, no burial record, no funeral notice, nothing. Like she just vanished. I found the facility. Eventually, it had changed names twice, now operating as a rehab center. I drove out there on a Tuesday, parked across the street, and waited. Watched. The building was old but still running. I walked in pretending to be a donor, asked for a tour. The front desk woman smiled too wide and handed me a brochure but said the interior wasn't open to visitors at the moment. "Was this place always for addiction recovery?" I asked casually. "No," she said. "Used to be a psychiatric center. Long time ago. They shut that wing down in '94. Bad press." "What kind of bad press?" "Oh, I don't know. Something about a missing patient, young girl. Staff got fired. State pulled funding. I wasn't here for that." She said it like a gossip, like it didn't matter. I asked if the old files still existed. She smiled again. "Even if they did, you wouldn't be allowed to see them." I left, but I sat in my car across the street for another hour, thinking, turning it all over in my mind. A missing patient, around the time Elise vanished. A facility that quietly rebranded. Parents who called her a threat, then erased her. And a single photo that slipped through the cracks. When I got home, my mom was already waiting at the kitchen table, like she knew where I'd gone. "It doesn't change anything," she said. "It changes everything," I snapped. "She was your daughter. She was something else," she said. "And you weren't there. You didn't see what she did to your brother." My heart dropped. "What do you mean?" My mom looked up and her eyes were cold. Not angry, not sad, just blank. "He still has the scar behind his ear. You never noticed." I hadn't. And now I couldn't unsee it. That little mark on the right side of his head, barely visible under his hairline. I'd asked him about it once in high school. He said he got it playing soccer. But now I wasn't so sure, and I wasn't sure what scared me more, that Elise had hurt him or that my parents needed that to be true so badly. They'd believed anything that proved it. I started avoiding them after that. Stayed out late, ate meals alone, watched them like they were strangers in my own house. Because in some way they were. I didn't know who they were anymore. All I knew was that at the center of this perfectly curated family was a silence so loud it screamed every time someone said, "We don't talk about the past." I didn't know what to do with any of it. Every time I thought I was getting close to the truth, another door shut. Another silence replaced an answer. I started writing everything down. Dates, names, fragments of sentences I could remember. I needed some kind of timeline, a map, something that would prove I wasn't losing it. Elise had existed, she had lived with us, and then she hadn't. I even found a neighbor, Mrs. Halpern, who used to live 3 houses down. She was retired now, living in Arizona. I messaged her through a Facebook group for our old street, pretending I was collecting memories for a neighborhood project. She sent me back a cheerful reply with some vague recollections. But one line caught my attention. "Your parents had a quiet house, always neat. I remember babysitting once, when your brother was still little. The little girl wouldn't come down for dinner. I thought she was sick, but your mom said she was just in one of her moods. I never saw her again after that, come to think of it. That was it, that one line. I never saw her again after that. I called her immediately, she didn't remember much else. Said it was just one night and that she wasn't even sure the girl lived there full time. But she did remember one thing clearly. I heard screaming upstairs, just once. I thought someone had gotten hurt, but when I asked, your mom said it was just a bad dream. When I asked her when that was, she said late '93, just before Halloween. I checked the weather records. That night had been stormy, power outages across our town. That might explain why no one called for help, why nothing got reported. But it didn't explain why a week later, Elise was gone. I finally confronted my brother. I waited until our parents had gone to bed and I asked him, point blank, "Do you remember Elise?" He looked at me like I'd slapped him. I could see something shift behind his eyes, something he didn't want me to see. He tried to brush it off, said I was misremembering things, that I'd been reading too much into old tapes and photos. But I wouldn't let it go. "Do you remember the scar behind your ear?" He stiffened. "What does that have to do with anything? Because Mom said she gave it to you." His voice got cold. "That's a lie." "Then tell me what happened." He looked away. "I don't know. I was a kid. It was dark. There was a lot of screaming. I remember falling. That's it." "Do you remember her?" He didn't answer for a long time. Then he whispered, "I remember being afraid to go upstairs." That was the first real thing he'd said to me in weeks. I pressed him. "Was she dangerous?" He shook his head slowly. "I don't think so. But they were afraid of her. And when they got scared, we all had to play along." That line sat with me for days. We all had to play along. I started wondering what playing along even meant. Pretending someone didn't exist, pretending they never lived in the room next to yours, that their shoes weren't still in the hall closet, or that their drawings weren't still buried under old magnets on the garage fridge, because that's what I found next. I was cleaning out the garage when I pulled off one of those old magnets, you know, the rubbery ones shaped like cartoon fruit, and behind it was a child's crayon drawing. Faded but still legible. It showed a house, ours, with stick figures. 4 of them, one tall, one with a dress, one with short spiky hair, and one drawn twice. The second version was smaller, crossed out in red. The name Elise was written beneath it in shaky letters. I stared at that for a long time. I didn't take it inside. I folded it and put it in my wallet. Proof in case I ever started to doubt again. Then I started going through my parents' bedroom. I know, I shouldn't have. But I wasn't looking for secrets anymore. I was looking for confirmations, something that would make sense of the gaps. I found an old locked box in the back of my mother's closet, inside papers yellowed with age. Letters, some written in a shaky hand, some typed, all signed ER. The tone of them varied, some begging, some furious, but all of them sounded lucid, scared but not erratic, not unstable. One said, "I didn't hurt anyone. Why won't you believe me?" Another said, "You told me you'd come back, you promised. Please let me come home." And the last one was the hardest to read. "I saw you watching me in the window. You didn't wave, you didn't blink, you just turned off the light." That letter was dated 6 months after her supposed death. That night I waited until both my parents were asleep and crept downstairs with the letters. I laid them out on the kitchen table when morning came. I didn't say anything. I just watched my mom walk in, pour her coffee, then freeze when she saw them. She sat down, didn't speak for almost 5 minutes, just stared. Then she said, "Your father burned the others." "Why keep these?" I asked. "Because I didn't have the heart to throw them away." "What happened to her?" "We don't know," she whispered. "She ran away, or they let her go, or something else, but she wrote these after she died." My mom looked up sharply. "You don't understand. We weren't allowed to talk about her, not even to each other. They made us sign documents, threatened to revoke custody of your brother if we interfered." "Who? The facility? The lawyers?" "I don't know. They said she was a risk, that she had to disappear, that if we loved our family we'd let go." She was shaking now. I'd never seen her cry like that, Not at funerals, not during fights, but now over these letters. So you let her disappear, she nodded. And I've regretted it every day since. I took the letters back upstairs, photocopied them at a print shop the next day, and stored the originals in a lockbox at my friend's apartment. I don't know why. Maybe because deep down I felt like if something ever happened to me, I needed someone else to know Elise existed, that she was here, that she was erased, not forgotten, and that someone in this family still remembered what they all tried to forget. After that night, something shifted in the house, not physically, no slammed doors, no arguments, just a silence that felt heavier. Like the walls themselves were trying to decide if they still trusted me. My parents stopped asking where I was going or when I'd be back. My dad barely looked at me. My mom busied herself in the kitchen for hours at a time, cleaning drawers that didn't need it, reorganizing the spice rack until she forgot what she was alphabetizing. And my brother started locking his door. Not when he went out, when he was in. Like someone might try to open it without warning. I couldn't unsee that drawing from the garage. The second version of Elise, drawn smaller and crossed out. It wasn't a tantrum. It felt intentional. I began to wonder how much of what they told us was ever real. I went to the local library next, the one downtown where the smell of paper and mildew somehow made you feel like the past might still be hiding between shelves. I asked for school records, yearbooks from the early 90s. I told the librarian I was researching for a podcast. It wasn't entirely a lie. I didn't know what else to call this obsession. I found a yearbook from 1992. There she was. Elise R. 3rd grade. No smile, same eyes, same hair. Her class photo had her standing at the edge of the row, not touching anyone. Like even the photographer didn't want her in the middle, I photocopied it. Then I checked the yearbook for 1993. She wasn't there. No transfer notice, no in memoriam page. Just gone. I flipped through the student council pages, club photos, even the funniest quotes section kids would get featured in. Nothing. It was like someone had pulled her out of the system overnight. When I asked the school for enrollment records, they said those files had been lost during a flood in 1999. Convenient. Every path led to a missing file, a sealed document, a clerk who couldn't legally discuss past students. I was starting to think I'd never get anything official, so I did something I never thought I'd do. I posted on a forum under a throwaway account, not Reddit, somewhere older, a place where people still talked like it was 2005. I wrote looking for information about a girl named Elise R., possibly from town name. Attended school name in early 90s. Disappeared in 1993. Any memories, tips, leads appreciated. I didn't use my real name. I didn't mention my connection. I just waited. 2 days later someone replied. Username looked fake. M4N0TB3R34L. The message was short. I remember her. I was in her class. She bit a teacher. I asked for more. They said they'd talk by phone, not over messages. I was hesitant, but curiosity won. I gave them a number I used for spam calls. They called that evening. Male voice. Probably late 30s, sounded tired. I asked how he remembered her. He said because after she bit Mr. Lemmer, he quit. Said she told him something about his wife cheating. And the next week she left him. Did anyone report it? I asked. I don't think so, he said. People didn't talk about that kind of stuff then, especially if it made the parents look bad. Do you remember what happened when she disappeared? A long pause. Then, I don't think she disappeared. I think she was taken. By who? Adults, men in suits. They came during recess, pulled her out of class. She didn't scream, just walked between them like she knew it was coming. Are you sure? I remember it like it was yesterday. Did the school say anything? They said she transferred, but no one said where. Have you talked to anyone else from that class? They don't remember her. I've asked. I think their parents told them to forget. I didn't know what to say. The call ended quickly. He didn't answer follow-ups. His account went dark the next day. I never heard from him again. But what he said matched too many other things I'd found. Too many silences, too many missing files, too many people not remembering. I kept thinking about the men in suits. Who were they? What authority did they have to take a child out of school without alerting the media, without paperwork? And why did no one question it? That night, I pulled out my dad's old filing cabinet. It was rusted, barely opened. Most of it was tax documents and manuals for electronics that hadn't worked since Y2K. But wedged between two car insurance folders was something strange. A manila envelope with no label. Inside, a business card from a government agency I'd never heard of. Not FBI, not CIA. Something more obscure. 3 letters, printed in black. The kind of card you can't Google. Underneath it, a typed letter. No greeting, no signature. Just, your continued cooperation ensures the protection of your remaining family. This matter is not to be reopened. No date, just that. I felt sick. I showed it to my brother. He stared at it for a long time, then said, "We need to burn it." Why? Because if they sent one, they probably sent more. You've seen something like this before? He didn't answer, just left the room. My parents refused to talk about it. My mom said it was probably old junk mail. My dad said he'd never seen it, but the look on his face said otherwise. I asked him directly, "Were you threatened?" He said nothing. Just walked out the back door. Again, like always, that weekend I started seeing things differently. Not visions, just signs. The neighbor who used to talk to my parents every day stopped waving. The mail started arriving torn, like someone had opened it and resealed it badly. My phone rang twice in the middle of the night, no number, no voicemail, just silence. I didn't believe in conspiracies. I still don't, but this wasn't coincidence. This wasn't paranoia. This was a pattern. Someone didn't want Elise's name spoken. Someone wanted her gone in more ways than one. And I couldn't stop asking why. I kept the card, tucked it under the liner in my wallet, right beside Elise's drawing from the garage. I told myself it was to protect the evidence, but really, I think I just needed to feel like I still had something they hadn't taken. Something real. That weekend I started driving. No plan, no map. Just long highways, back roads, places I remembered from when I was a kid. I thought maybe if I retraced steps, I'd remember something. Maybe Elise had been there. Maybe some piece of her still lingered in places where the adults weren't always watching. I ended up outside the county courthouse. I don't know why, it wasn't on purpose. Maybe I was hoping some public record had slipped through the cracks. Something not buried behind passwords or signatures. Inside, it smelled like cheap carpet and old air conditioning. The clerk at the records desk didn't look up when I approached. I asked if I could look at juvenile court filings from 1993. She said those were sealed. I asked about real estate transfers, property seizures, anything filed by the state under the name Elise R., or my father's name. She typed slowly, chewing gum like it annoyed her. Then she blinked. There is one. She turned the monitor slightly. February 1994. Emergency state custody order. Redacted. Can I see it? No. Can I file to access it? You can try. Won't go anywhere without a judge. What was the reason for custody? She shook her head. That part's blacked out. Just says, per recommendation of federal liaison. I stared at the screen. Federal liaison? Yeah, that's weird, right? Usually these things are all state level. Do you know who it was? She scrolled. Initials only. BS. I filed the request anyway, knowing it wouldn't go through. But it felt like something I had to do. Like maybe filing the paperwork was my way of telling someone, anyone, I was still looking. Back home, things got quieter. My parents had retreated entirely into themselves. They stopped speaking during meals. The television stayed off. My dad started spending long hours in the basement, sitting at the old workbench, staring at pieces of wood he never built anything with. My mom took up crossword puzzles, dozens of them, but she only filled in the corners, never touched the centers. Like she couldn't bring herself to reach the hard parts. My brother started crashing at friends' places, said he needed space. I knew the feeling. One night I stayed up late. Around 2 a.m. I heard the front door click. I looked out the window and saw my father leaving. No car, just walking like he had somewhere specific to be. I followed, kept my distance. He walked for nearly 40 minutes, through streets we hadn't lived near in years. He stopped outside an abandoned church. One of those little wooden buildings with peeling paint and a sign that still read Community Worship Sundays at 10. I watched as he stepped behind the building and disappeared from view. I waited 5 minutes, then followed. There was a door in the back, unlocked. I slipped inside. The air was thick with dust and something older, harder to name. Like time had settled into the floorboards and refused to leave. My dad was standing at the pulpit looking at the front pew. I couldn't see what he was looking at, until I stepped closer and realized there was a single photo frame sitting on the bench, Elise. A younger version than the yearbook. Maybe 6 or 7, no smile, just that quiet, haunting gaze. My father didn't turn. He said, "She used to sing here, before everything." I didn't say anything. "She was good," he continued. Voice like glass, it never matched her eyes. People would clap, but she never smiled. I stepped closer. "Why did you come here? To remember her how I want to. Do you even know what happened to her?" His shoulders stiffened. "No," he said. "But I think about it every day. Did someone take her?" No one takes someone who's already been given away. That sentence stayed with me. I asked what he meant. He didn't answer. Just reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper and handed it to me. It was a copy of a letter, typed. Same font as the one I'd found in the manila envelope. Subject relocated. Do not pursue. Future contact will result in forfeiture of family privileges. I wanted to scream. Forfeiture of family privileges. Like we were a subscription service. Like Elise was a trial that didn't work out. I asked him, "Why did you let them do this?" He said, "Because they told us she wasn't ours anymore." I left without saying another word. That night I called my aunt. Asked her what she remembered about this church. She said Elise used to walk there alone sometimes. That one time she found her sitting in the empty chapel, humming to herself. She said something strange to me, my aunt recalled. She said, "God doesn't like liars, but he hates secrets more." I never forgot that. I asked if Elise ever came back to her, if she'd heard from her after 1993. My aunt hesitated, then said, "I got a letter once, no return address, just a postcard." Said, "I'm okay, don't tell them." When was this? 97. What did you do? I burned it. I was afraid. I couldn't blame her. Everyone around Elise had learned to be afraid, or had been taught to be. I started thinking about that a lot. How easy it is to disappear someone when everyone's already agreed not to ask questions. When love comes with clauses. When memory is treated like a liability. And still, there was something missing. Something no one had said. The scar on my brother's head, the business card with no agency, the men in suits, the sealed documents. I started to wonder, what if they didn't erase Elise because she was dangerous? What if they erased her because she remembered something she wasn't supposed to? I didn't expect closure. I wasn't even sure what I wanted anymore. Answers, justice, peace, none of those words fit. All I knew was that I couldn't live inside their silence anymore. I moved out 2 weeks later, packed up my things and left without ceremony. My mom didn't say goodbye. She stood at the sink washing a plate that was already clean. My dad didn't come out of the basement. My brother helped me carry boxes to the car. On the last trip he looked at me and said, "You should let it go." Why? Because they won't let you carry both. The truth and a life. I drove to a town 2 hours away, rented a small apartment above a bakery. Started working remote jobs, odd shifts, anything to keep me distracted. I didn't talk to anyone about Elise. I didn't post more. I didn't ask questions, but I didn't stop thinking either. Some days were worse than others. I'd see a girl on the street with the same haircut, the same walk, and I'd feel my throat tighten. Other days I'd wake up with a phrase from one of her letters in my head, like it had never left me. I kept all the documents in a locked box under my bed. Sometimes I'd open it just to remind myself it happened, that she was real, that I didn't imagine it. 6 months later I got a letter, no return address, same typeface as before, but this one was different, shorter. Just one line, "You were supposed to forget." I didn't tell anyone. I burned it, not out of fear, out of exhaustion. Out of the weight of carrying something no one wants to believe. One night, out of habit, I went back to the forum where I'd first posted. My original thread had been deleted. My account was locked, but one private message remained, unread, from a different username this time. No profile picture, no history. The message said, "I remember Elise. She told me you were the only one who ever looked her in the eye." That broke me in a way I didn't know was possible, because I didn't remember that. I didn't remember ever looking her in the eye, but maybe I had. Maybe once, just for a second, our eyes met in a hallway, or in the yard, or at that birthday party I barely remember. And maybe that moment, small and stupid as it seemed, was enough to stay with her all those years. I wrote back. The message never delivered. The account disappeared the next day. I tried to track it, tried to reverse search the IP, nothing. That was the last time anyone mentioned Elise to me. Since then, the silence has only grown. My parents never bring her up. My brother got married last year. I didn't go to the wedding. They sent an invite, but I couldn't bring myself to stand in a room full of people pretending none of this ever happened. I still get calls sometimes, unlisted numbers, no voicemail. Always around 3 a.m. I don't answer them. I don't block them either. I just let them ring. Maybe I'm waiting for someone to say something. Maybe I'm hoping Elise is still out there, that she got away, that someone helped her become someone else, or maybe she didn't. Maybe she died in that facility. Maybe they made sure there'd be no loose ends. I'll never know for sure. That's the thing about stories like this. You don't get endings. You get fragments, crossed out names, torn pages, letters that show up when you think you've forgotten. But here's what I do know. When you grow up in a house built on secrets, silence doesn't protect you. It corrodes you from the inside out. And when someone in your family finally says something you can't unhear, it doesn't break the spell. It just shifts the weight from their shoulders to yours.